Thank you for tuning in to another episode of RIA Collective. I'm your host, as always, Charlie Van Derven. Now, those of you who have listened to the show for a little while, we've really got a mission, if you will. Financial services is not a highly trusted industry in the United States. In fact, fourth least trusted, not keeping great company. And so it's my premise and my idea and my experience that the independent, the RIA, is in a better place to serve clients without bias, without proprietary products, without high pressure quotas. And I'm interviewing a person today that has come through from Wirehouse environment, is now running his RIA, part of a larger team, but we'll get into all that. Today, I'm talking to Peter Krull. Peter's based out of Asheville, North Carolina. Lucky freaking guy. And his firm is Earth Equity Advisors. And Peter's got a very specific focus, as you might guess by the name of his firm, on ESG. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Peter, thank you for being here, man. I'm excited to have our conversation today.
Charlie, it is always good to see you. We always have a great conversation every time we do something like this. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so if you haven't seen it, Peter and I did a webinar together. Gosh, 4, 5, 6 months ago now, Peter, huh?
At least then, yeah.
With
Matt Halloran and Abby Sheridan.
Abby Sheridan, yeah, absolutely. And if I recall, I showed up about 6 minutes late to that webinar.
Yeah, we were sitting around looking, watch.
Dude,
we forgave you for it because
I was so embarrassed. You guys were so gracious. It was my show. I usually do them at 2:00 because we were trying to brand this thing Tuesdays at 2. And then this one happened to be at 1. And I was like, I got a text from you guys. And I was like, wow. So anyway, as I turn red again from the embarrassment of doing that, Peter, let's shelve that conversation. If I never visit it again in my life, I'm fine with that.
Let's do.
Yeah, Peter. So you came out of Wirehouse, man. You know what it's all about to make a breakaway. Let's get started, kind of catch your story up there where you're at this large firm. We can mention them or not. I don't care. People can check out your LinkedIn profile and find out who it was. What was the driver to get out of that environment and move into a place where you had more independence, more control over the client relationship? Talk about that a little bit.
Actually, if you don't mind, let's back up just a little bit.
Yeah, dude, of course.
There. So my degree is actually in communication. So It's not in business or finance or accounting or anything like that. My degree is actually in communication, and I was going to be a broadcast news dude, and that didn't happen. But out of college, I took a turn and worked in consumer electronics for a while, and was a store manager and a salesperson and a trainer and a whole bunch of cool stuff that I learned a ton from. The company didn't do very well, and in fact, they went out of business. But when they went out of business, I was a Merrill Lynch client, and I called my Merrill Lynch guy and said, "Can you give me a job?" And he got me an interview, and I started with Merrill Lynch. That was back right at the end of 1998.
Okay.
So 27 years now it's been. And what I liked about Merrill at the time is they had really good training. They would send you up to Princeton, and you would spend a couple weeks up there. I got to go on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange back when there was actually stuff happening on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I was back there again back in September recording an interview down there, and Jeff Gitterman, who was doing the interview, we just did a little back and forth lamenting the fact that nothing was actually happening around us on the floor down there.
Funny.
But so I started with Merrill. Again, great training, really learned the ropes about asset allocation and how to invest. And I had always had an interest in it, but it wasn't anything that I guess I thought I could do until I had nothing else to do. And I was like, let's try this. And I think I really, really loved it and really fell into the role. What I didn't like about Merrill was some of the entrenched interests, if you will.
Sure.
There was like a resident manager there. That resident manager had a spouse who became a financial advisor, and then anytime prospects came into the office, they all went to her because she was
interesting.
Yeah, and that didn't seem fair to me, and I did all right there. I had hit all my goals. I finished in terms of the different levels that you could finish your training in. I finished at the top of that and built the business for a little bit, but there was just a point in time when it just didn't feel right anymore, and that was happening. And so I was dating my wife, Melissa, who is much, much smarter than me. She has PhDs in microbiology, molecular genetics, so I am not bullshitting about that. I can't say that, right, on here?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want on here, Peter.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, I don't think we have any FCC controls. I haven't looked into it, so you do what you want, man.
Anyway, she's much smarter than me. And so we were having conversations about sustainability and climate change and everything wrapped up in that. And then about the same time, I met a gentleman named Bill McDonough, who was introduced to me by a client. And Bill was the preeminent green architect of the time. He was
Oh,
designing entire cities, and he
cool.
was writing books about circular economy. So, the book called, what was it? Cradle to Cradle. And the idea of circular economy being that you build products and you design products so that way they can be taken back apart and then reused again in different things.
Cool.
And so it's much more efficient from a resource perspective. And so I just started thinking differently about the economy, and I started looking out at the financial services side of it. And we had a guy at Merrill who he was the sort of the mentor for the young advisors. And every time the Calvert Investments rep came in, he would always say, I'm going to start doing that socially responsible investing stuff, because they would talk about it. And for him, he never did it. It wasn't part of what his ethic was, but he was a smart guy. He did see that there was possibility or potential in that. And so I always kept that in the back of my mind until it was time to jump off the cliff.
Very cool. And so was the move from Merrill about that? You'd seen this ESG, the sustainable investing path, and it just wasn't available there, or what was, what?
I was unhappy there. And I did a very short stint at a bank, and I realized that I do not want to work in the bank channel.
Yeah.
And that's when I started what was Krull and Company at the time, which is what eventually became Earth Equity. It was more out of necessity that I went out on my own than anything else, because it was a leap in the dark. I saw the opportunity there, but I didn't know if my clients would come with me. I didn't know anything like that. There was no guaranteed income that I was going to get. And it was a risk I took. And I was actually on a podcast yesterday. The person asked me about entrepreneurship. And a lot of times for new entrepreneurs, it's jump off the cliff and then your
Yeah.
wings grow as you move. And that's really what happened to me.
I could tell a similar story. Right.
Yep.
And I was working for a large firm, a large marketing firm in the industry that was, let's just say doing things. Our industry's so compliance heavy, right? It's easy to build something in one time and sell it many times, right? And that was their model. And I thought every advisor needs a voice. And that was the change for me. And same thing, man. My wife and I had a little bit of savings, and I was like, hey, give me 60 days to see if I can find some clients. And if I don't
Yep.
get any, I'll go get another job, but it's either now or never. And
Yep.
so we moved the furniture out of the master bedroom, moved a conference table in, popped open the laptop, built a website, built a logo, and went from there. But scary, right?
Oh, it's very scary. And I think I had a bit of an advantage because I do have a communications background. So on the
Right.
marketing side, I did a lot of the same stuff, created the logo, built the website. I did all that stuff myself.
Yeah.
And that was an experience as well to really add to that entrepreneurial background. And luckily, the vast majority of my clients came with me. And that ball was already rolling within 6 months or so of making
Awesome.
the leap.
Yeah. Good. Now, I have to expect, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your location in Asheville, coupled with ESG, there's got to be a marriage there. I've been to Asheville a number of
Yep.
times. I'm going to use the term granola a little bit, Peter, but I say that tongue in cheek.
Crunchy.
Yeah, a little crunchy. There's got to be an appetite for that type of
Yeah.
investing in your backyard.
But I didn't start the firm here in Asheville. I actually started the
Yeah.
firm
Okay.
in Roanoke, Virginia, which
Aha.
which
Okay.
which also is a little bit more progressive as well. Not as progressive as it is here in Asheville, but the location wasn't as important as the opportunity, because we also lived on the coast of Georgia, where we followed my wife's job down to the UGA Marine Institute and lived on an island off the coast of Georgia in the middle of nowhere. And that's where, at the time, there was two means of marketing that really worked well. One was I would go to these things like green expos, where you would go and there would be people trying to sell you solar panels and people doing other like energy efficiency kind of stuff. And I would
Sure.
be there with my table talking about sustainable investing, or at the time, socially responsible investing.
Yeah.
And we had tons of clients that way, because I
Cool.
knew that's where people who were part of the tribe, if you will, were going to
Yeah.
show up. And then the second is I developed a good website. And I didn't necessarily need to be anywhere in particular to be marketing. So the website did a great job. Now, I think all of that has completely changed. You can't go to an expo and get clients anymore. And people expect much more than a website at this point.
Yeah, marketing has changed a lot. Yes, for
Yes.
sure. Let's get some lessons out there for our listeners who, of course, podcasts. People tell me they listen, but I don't know who they all are. Most of that is a somebody who might be in a position where you were at Merrill Lynch, no longer happy with that environment, or a large insurance company selling products that they don't necessarily stand behind. When you made that move initially, Peter, was there something that, that hangs on your mind of something or maybe a couple things that you did really well that our listeners could learn from if they're ready to make a leap like this?
I laid a plan out. That's the first thing I did.
Cool.
When I started, I used LPL as my broker
Okay.
dealer. That was my jump. And but before I even started working with them, I had created a full business plan. And they didn't really ask for one, but I sent it in anyway. Here's my business plan. Here's what I'm going to spend on this. Here's how I'm going to do marketing. Here's who my demographics are. Here's the kind of portfolios I'm going to put together. So I created, and I have it somewhere in my files here, that original business plan that I
Nice.
created. So before you make that leap, make sure that you know how you're going to do business. A lot of things you're going to learn on the fly. There's a lot of on-the-job training, but
Yeah.
what you can do, or what you do know, that you can plan for it. And the second thing is that when you put a plan together, assume that it's going to take, say, twice as long as what you think it's going to take, because planning sounds great until you're 3 months in and you're like, oh gosh, I'm nowhere near where I expected to be. Expect things are going to take twice as long.
Yeah, I share that one entirely. Where what we thought would be a six to 10 year journey, we're 12 years into, and still loving what we do. But yeah, the timeline you lay out in your head is not the timeline of reality, perhaps.
And we really didn't start doing like really well until like year 10, 12, something like that.
Yeah,
And I like to say it's a 10-year overnight success.
yeah,
That's so often. Yes, you know what? You might hit it out of the park immediately, but
yep,
more realistically, it's going to take time. And especially in this business where you have to build trust and you have to make good connections with people, both as clients, but also as COIs and different things, those different things.
yeah.
That stuff takes time. And when you start out, a lot of times there's just you, or maybe you and a client service person. And so being, as my dad used to say, chief cook and bottle washer, you only have so much time in a day and you don't want to burn yourself out. I certainly have went through those periods where it is just event after event. In fact, I've felt that way for the past couple of weeks because I've been traveling to events and doing media tour and giving speaking gigs. And I came back and I told my wife, I told my business partner, I'm like, I am just burnt. And
Yeah.
so that self-care is just as important too.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. So I think that's a great segue into you've got a book.
I do have a book.
Yeah. Sustainable Investor. All
Check it
right,
out.
man. I love your cover art, dude.
Thank you. And you
Yeah. That,
see who wrote the forward there?
wow. Ed Begley Jr.,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. You have friends in high places.
I have friends in high places. No, Ed is a great guy. He's been on my podcast, which we were going to talk
Oh,
about that too. But
we're going to get to
Ed,
that for sure.
there's a great story with how I met Ed.
Yeah.
So I was doing a Green Expo, like I was talking about earlier, in Delaware several years ago, probably, gosh, maybe a decade even. And they booked us both to speak at the same time. And so Ed had 200 people at his talk, and I think I had two. And I think one of those people might have become a client. I got to meet him afterwards and made a connection. And then several years down the line, I was in LA for Future Proof and went and contacted his wife, who's connected through another friend, anyways, and went and saw him. I met him at his house in Studio City and said, Ed, I don't have an agenda, just wanted to touch base again. But my marketing people want me to do a podcast. Would you be my first guest?
Cool.
And he looked at me and put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Pete, I'd love to do that for you. When do you want to do it? I said, how about now? And he goes like this. He said, let me go put a shirt on and put a shirt on. I set everything up in the kitchen at the table. And we recorded the first episode of my podcast just completely on the fly like that. And it was amazing. And he's such a good person. I had dinner with him this past September in LA when I was out there for Future Proof again, and then in New York City during Climate Week. And
Cool.
anyway, just he and his wife are just the best people. And they truly are. When you talk about people who walk the walk, they
Yeah.
walk the walk from an environmental climate and sustainability perspective. He takes the bus to go to the Oscars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
Yeah, that's cool. I can get behind that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
absolutely.
That's
He's a good
great.
guy.
Yeah. So let's talk podcast a little bit. And you
Yeah.
brought something up just now about that in-person, that in-person discussion with Ed.
Yeah.
And I know you and I chatted about it at some point here too. I've only ever done the podcast via Zoom like this,
Yep.
like we are today. What do what talk to me about the difference? I think the equipment's a little different. Maybe you need a switchboard. Am I even using the right terminology? I don't know.
Yeah. I only do them in person. And so I've got this microphone here. I've got an extra one of these that I carry with me when I go. But I just use the camera that's on my Mac. I got a MacBook Pro, one of the higher end ones,
That's what I'm on right now.
and that's what I use. And it's pretty simple. I don't do any of the editing or anything. I'm just recording, and then I send that off to our marketing folks to do that part of it. But there's just a certain energy I think you get when you're sitting
Yeah.
next to somebody, and I think that comes out in some of the podcast episodes that we've done. I think we are almost 3 years in right now,
Cool.
and we've tried to put an episode out about every 3 to 4 weeks,
Okay.
which means that I'm constantly having churn them out. You know what that's like.
Yep.
But it's a little harder when I can't do it virtually or when I don't want to do it virtually. I know there's going to be
Yeah.
some point at which I'm going to have to, just simply because I won't be at a conference or something where I'm doing it. Or I was in New York 2 weeks ago and recorded a couple episodes when I was up there.
Yeah. Cool. How can we find the podcast?
Podcast is just dollars, ampersand change, dollars and change.
Cool.
It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, and it's on Apple Podcasts. The book, which I want to talk about the book a little bit too, if you got a
Yeah.
second here.
For sure, man. For sure.
So The Sustainable Investor is the book, and it's written for financial advisors, but just about anybody who has an interest in sustainable investing can read it. It's not a technical read as much as it is an experiential read. So
Cool.
I wanted to be able to write something that corrected a lot of the misinformation that is out there about ESG and sustainable investing.
Yeah.
Because between the legacy industries that are threatened by it and the politicians who
Yep.
are owned by those legacy industries, there's just not even misinformation, there's intentional disinformation out there about this. And so I've taken it on myself to be the person who's out and saying, no, ESG is not woke investing. ESG is a way to do risk management. It is, what is the environmental risk on a company? What's the social risk on a company? What's the governance risk on a company? And how do you integrate that into your due diligence process? And that's been integrated into the book and a lot of podcasts that I do. Whereas sustainable investing is more bottom up. It's what are the companies that are leading us into a cleaner, more resource efficient, more resilient, and more equitable economy. So you're actually building portfolios based on solutions companies versus what ESG is, which is still a good technique, but it's just more of a risk management technique.
Cool. I
Yeah.
love it. And in fact, I'll be your next buyer. I'll jump on Amazon when we're done here.
Go to bookshop.org and don't
Okay.
support Amazon, support your
Okay.
local bookstore.
Dude, you educate me every time we talk.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
the website for it is sustainableinvestorbook.com, and it's got a bunch of different options for purchasing it there.
Awesome, Peter. I love talking to you, dude. We got to do this more often.
Absolutely. It's like we're almost done or we're done already, and I'm like, we got so much more to talk about.
I know it, man. I know it. And if I didn't have a call in 5 minutes, I could keep going for a while. But my buddy Charles would be sitting there wondering what the heck happened to me.
You owe me 8 minutes, so we could probably go over 8 minutes still.
Oh, yeah. I was it eight?
I'm giving you crap. I'm
no,
giving you crap.
Was it eight? I thought it was six. Now I'm just negotiating. Peter, I hope we get to spend 8 hours together one day, dude. And I'll bring the book so you can autograph it.
Yes. Come visit us in Asheville.
I would love to. We've traveled through the Pisgah National there and up through Brevard, and yeah, I love that part of the country, man. I really do.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And we're still recovering from Hurricane Helene here,
I
but
know you are. Yeah.
we still want people to come visit us. Our restaurants are still great. The beer is still really good, and the music is awesome.
And the Biltmore is still functional.
Biltmore didn't have any other than the entrance to Biltmore and the area down by the river. Biltmore House, and the gardens all weren't really affected much by the storms.
So I lived in Knoxville or outside of Knoxville for a brief time in my life, and when I was being transient, my brother had a house there, so we spent about 6 months there.
Yeah.
And we did the Biltmore, man. We did the Asheville tourist thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love your part of the country, dude. So I will happily. In fact, I travel that East Coast quite often, and so next time we'll grab dinner or lunch or whatever works.
That sounds good. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today.
Yeah, dude. Peter, if any of our listeners have any questions, you mind if they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Earthequity.com is our website. You can find me there. Love to talk to people. We're always looking for great financial advisors who would love to be part of the Earth Equity team. A little plug for some jobs as well.
Yeah, you got it, man. I'll tell you what, I think consciousness is incredibly important, not just that move from that location into maybe a wirehouse or big firm, but doesn't suit you anymore and serving
Yep.
clients is the purity of it to sustainable investing and doing things, making your investments matter for the world. Awesome, Peter. You're doing good
All
things,
good.
dude.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for being here. And for our listeners, again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of RIA Collective. We appreciate you like crazy. Share this podcast, give us a subscribe, all that stuff the kids tell you to do. We appreciate that.